But now I'm 40, it's 2023, and we are seeing this resurgence of Indian dominance. I wouldn't say dominance, but Indian power on the global front. And you see this embracing of Indian pride, and that could be in language, it could be in food, it could be in clothing, it could be in expression and ideas amongst a lot of the younger population. So for a moment now, we can see India on the cusp of something which a lot of people speculate as the next big power on the global stage. So for a moment, so could you take me through maybe a contrast of what was you just said about where we were thousands of years back to what your observations on present day India are?
See, we are at the cusp of something big. It could go either way. I will put it like that. We could go to reach, India could achieve its true potential. It can go to achieve so many people, 150 crore, 160 crore people. We can become perhaps one of a stabilizing force in the world, offer a different way based on our roots and ethics, on an inclusive way of living. That is the biggest message of India. So much diversity we could handle. Any other country with this kind of diversity, any other geography with this kind of diversity, you can see across the world, they have ended up in huge wars and bloodshed. We have so far managed to restrict those kind of bloodsheds. It's not that bloodsheds never happen here, because it's human nature to sometimes be violent. But we have so far avoided that. So we can continue like this. We can continue to be inclusive. We can continue to accept the differences in thoughts, and like how Hinduism is. Hinduism, if you really see, is an umbrella religion. It has got so many conflicting thoughts and contradicting methods, yet it accepts and respects everything. And that is how it has gone forward and survived and flourished. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is this kind of the pride, what we are feeling, it can go rotten also. Because where do you stop it? If you think that we are the best, one is swinging to what we were like, we need validation from the West, we are inferior, we feel inferior, to swinging to the other end and saying that we are the greatest in the world, we were the greatest in the world, and we have nothing to learn from anyone else. And our language, moment we say that, the question comes whose language, question comes whose religion, question comes whose God. Because in Hinduism itself, there is no one way of worshipping, right? There are so many schools and streams, and that's the beauty of this religion. The moment you try to unify it in a very 17th century, 18th century, or pre-World War European way, where a nation can be unified only by having one religion, one language, one way of thought, one this thing. This led to the things like fascism. This led to the European countries becoming each nation for its own and fighting with each other, and led to different kind of world wars and conflicts and other things. Whereas India, which is having much more diversity compared to Europe, always managed it by having a very open heart. The moment we close our heart with our rightful or unrightful or imaginary pride, it can also go in the way of conflicts like what we witnessed in 1947, where each side said that our side is right, and we almost managed to kill what Hitler killed. We almost managed to kill almost 15 to 20 lakhs people in our civil war. It wasn't very far away when you see the history, hardly 75 years before. We killed around, we butchered just with hockey sticks and knives, not even guns. Imagine such a civil war happening now. So we have to think on either side. We always, it will not be, nations can turn either way at this cusp. We are at the cusp of something. We can go to greatness, which we all hope and pray we will reach there. We can also go into balkanization and fights and other things, which we pray should not happen. which we should work, it should not happen. So the moment you talk about pride of language, India has so many languages. It's not just the 22 languages which is in the schedule. We have got more than 300 to 400 languages. Each village starts claiming pride. Each caste starts claiming pride on itself. Each Gotra starts claiming pride on its heritage. Where do we end?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to tell us a story. It's all storytelling. Nation building also is a storytelling.
Mm.
We need to tell a story where there is place for everyone.
There's a sense of lost times, right? When I think about what you said about how we need all of this to make a nation or make a civilization flourish, which is work, which could either be agriculture, it could be any form of economy, to spiritual seeking or philosophical, pondering, or arts or music. And today it seems with the technological revolution, the time seems to be something that no one has, or rather the attention for gaining information has reduced, right? Because everything has gone from hours to nanoseconds in some way. So is this a hybrid, rapid progress of a nation that you're looking at? Because when you research for your books and you study these ancient texts, of course, you can't say, the past is always glorious. There is a need for change, and change is inevitable. And we are sitting where we are today. We can't obviously transport ourselves back to 3000 BC. So what are some of the things that we can apply? Because the moment you talk about the past in India, especially, the demons come up, people point fingers, there's accusations, the caste systems, the upper caste is always oppressed, or there's religious institutions that has stolen people's livelihood or has prevented people from coming up in life. So there's always pointing fingers. Or it's the other extreme, as you rightly pointed, where it's like, oh, India invented yoga, India is the greatest country. There seems to be more of this extreme views about the past. But
I think that's a problem of the social media. Social media always, there's a context collapse. There cannot be any nuanced discussion now. It has to be either this or the other extreme. Either India is all, the entire Indian civilization was a lie, and we were all, everything that is good that came from the West. Or the other extreme. We had atom bombs and nuclear bombs, and we were flying around to Mars. Kind of, both are ridiculous, if you ask me.
Right. But social media is there. We can't ignore the fact that it does have an influence, especially now with the reach of social media. There are people who are unwilling to read the texts that are out there. They're willing to be manipulated by a certain narrative, by a certain political group or a certain social group or a certain community that they belong to. So as a result, we can't ignore the presence and the influence of social media. So how does someone like you, who's a scholar in many ways, who writes stories about these ages, how do you navigate your storytelling? Because it's easy for you to be taken out of context, or for your stories to be used by a certain group in a certain weaponized way. So what do you make of this?
There is, fortunately, not many people read in India. That's first thing.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Unfortunately or fortunately, not many people read in India. Compared to our population, very less people read.
Right.
So I don't think the writers are that important in the country,
Right.
except in their heads. That's first thing. It's a fact. Let us accept the fact. Compared to for our population, and especially people now, India might be the only country where people proudly say, no, I don't read any fiction. I don't read anything. I don't have time to read. When I have time, I will read. Many of the countries across the world which has got very far lesser population sell more books, and people read more.
Yeah.
And they have enough time to do that. So that is one safety when you write anything. Since people don't read, very less number of people read. The kind of things what you say about that risk is less. Jokes apart, but that's a fact also. Jokes apart, you can't write for social media. You can't write being scared that somebody will caught you out of context and then create ruckus. Though people who want to create ruckus can create ruckus on anything and everything. People created ruckus on some actors' bikini also, right? So there is nothing, there is no dearth of things in India where people, and there is no dearth of unemployed, WhatsApp inspired crazy people in India who can agitate for anything and everything. So you can't lead your life dependent upon that. You stay true to what you want to say and say it boldly. And if something happens, let us see at that time. That's the only approach to take. Or you'll have to give up doing anything altogether and just be the slogan shouting rat led by the Pied Pipers. It's our choice whether you want to be the rat following the Pied Pipers, whichever party or denomination or class or caste they belong to, or you want to stand apart and watch these poor rats going to get drowned. It's a choice which we'll have to make.
Well said.
But one thing is that what we should not forget, and what we are unfortunately forgetting, is that while all the din is there about India becoming great and India becoming richer and richer, which is true, and which also gives us a lot of pleasure and a sense of pride, we should not forget to look around. Even now, almost 70% of the people are living in dire poverty. We are yet to solve many of the other problems. It doesn't mean that we should solve all those things and then only we should think about any other great things. All these things will go hand in hand. Every country developed like that. But even now, our literacy rates are very bad. Many parts of the country, even now it is 40% illiterates are there, 35% illiterates are there. And not just literacy, in many other aspects. As per, I'm not quoting any UN report or anything, I'm quoting Niti Aayog report itself.
Yeah.
It's a government's statistics. And I am sure government is also aware of this fact. It's not that people at the top are not aware of the fact. They are working towards it. What many of the social media warriors forget is that this is also a reality for many of the people. Away from the media and other things, if you take by the sheer numbers, we will have more poor than any other country's population. Even if 30% of us are poor, that is something like 50 crore, which is more than America's, 1.5 times America's population. So what are we talking about overtaking anyone else?
Right.
Only when we are able to take all these people together and assure them a dignified life. We have the world's maximum number of malnourished people, malnourished children even now. As for the government statistics, I'm not talking about any agency, NGO or anything. Anybody who has doubt can go to Niti Aayog report and see. So this is a harsh fact which government also is aware, and government also, state governments, national governments, union government, all of them are coming up with a lot of schemes. But there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
So it's not a bit criticism against any party or any politician or anything, but this is like a self-criticism, a mirror which we have to look at ourselves when we are going gaga about India's progress, is that a huge number of people are still at the bottom. There are historical reasons for that. But that should not be an excuse after 75 years of independence. Where are our priorities?
And it's a population very easily forgotten in debates, in literary fests or in government arguments, right? Because it's invisible in many ways, which is the sad part.
Who wants to talk about poverty? It has gone out of fashion, right?
Yeah.
And it is not a pleasant thing. Social media, again, I will call it as a culprit, because this is one place where we all come and show our best faces, no? The best filters, the best dress, in the happiest moment of our life. So it gives a very golden dust coated view of reality.
Yeah.
So what happens is, even when we tend to cover up our warts, we tend to cover up our poverty and other things with huge flexes, cover up the slums.
Yeah.
And wash the highways and put gardens in the highways, which is also required. I'm not saying they are not required.
Yeah.
But the problem is, which are all essential for this. But you cannot go forward when 30 crore people cannot go forward with 100 crore left behind.
Yeah.
Or 120 crore left behind.
It just weighs you down. I mean, whether you like it or not.
It is going to weigh you down. It's going to come after you one day or another. It will cause social strife.
So
sooner or later.
I want to, again, go back in time, because this is something which is very interesting to me. Are the texts, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, are these real accounts of what happened, or are they stories told by, well, fictional authors of the day?
How does it matter is my first question.
Right.
Because I know from where these kind of questions are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
This comes from a desperate search for glory in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And not particularly about you. I'm talking about generally when we tell it is. Because if you go by the text,
Mm-hmm.
there are countless Ramayanas
Mm-hmm.
which have happened we don't have a linear history.
Mm-hmm.
As per our belief, these things keeps on happening. So if you go by the Ramayana text, it is like that the Ramayanas are happening, many Ramayanas are happening across multiple universes
Mm-hmm.
at different stages. That's the first thing. So you
That's
go
amazing.
into quantum physics and metaphysics and not to history when you really read the text. So what happens is the Ramayana, what we know now, is not the first Ramayana. Millions of Ramayanas have happened before that, as per the text itself. Millions will happen again, and millions are happening now at different places. So it is immaterial on so and so BC, so and so date this happened, because we have enough history without making all these things into history. There could have been some kernel of history into it, but that is not the idea of these texts. These texts are written with a much higher purpose. It is not just a tale of some king fighting another king. We had enough kings. We have enough kings fighting with each other in the last 4,000, 5,000 years for us. Ramayana is not a tale of just one king against another, or Mahabharata is not a tale of two cousins fighting each other. They have got much more deeper meaning, and we should not reduce them. We are actually doing an injustice trying to make them into some sort of a historical event and trying to take pride in that. What do you take pride in Mahabharata? It's a cautionary tale. It's such a great tale warning about the problem of war.
And this is where my ignorance might have come across. Sorry, that's why I asked you the question. Is it was not loaded with, oh, let's get you to rave about Indian past, but I want to understand the idea, because this is where it was coming from. This is where my ignorance showed, I suppose. Is that what when I said real, is that if at face value, as you said, it's about a king saving his queen from a enemy, right? Very simplified way. But I wanted you to actually answer the profound, or if you want to call it, the higher purpose of these texts, like not the actual historical recounting of these texts, but what does it serve to? Why does
historically it doesn't have any? If you ask me, it is much beyond the history, because it shaped our art. Both these texts and many of the Puranas shaped our art, it shaped our religion, it shaped our culture, it shaped our all kind of, like poetry it shaped, drama it shaped, sculptures it shaped, temple building it shaped our lives, how we lead our life. So this is where the importance comes from. No, people have drawn inspiration not from historical characters in India. They have drawn inspiration from these epics. So this is what unites India.